Let's get away from Dota and talk about a game that's more on Vince's speed. Vince, you reviewed Street Fighter V.
Yes, I did.
Give that game a real nice score.
A pretty nice score. I wanted to give it a nicer one, but I couldn't because of what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, and it's one of those games I feel like... What was the exact score? 8?
I gave it an 8. 8 flat.
So just a flat 8.
Yep.
And I feel like it's one of those games, if you'd given it an 8 or you gave it a 4, I'd be like, yep, either way. Because the core of Street Fighter V, I love it so much. I love that you and I played a bunch of matches.
Yep.
And I played it at events, and I played at my desk, and every time I play it, I'm like... This game looks amazing. I love the V systems. I love these new characters and the way the old characters feel. I love the combat. I love these new relationships. Man, Street Fighter V is just, it's a hell of a fighting game.
Yeah.
But yowza, it's got some problems.
Yeah, and like those problems, it's an interesting thing, and Dan and I have been talking about this a little bit. So it's like, so we're talking about specifically the PC version here,
yes.
Or so.
I mean, there's been issues on PS4, and there is connectivity between the two, so there's relevance regardless.
They're pretty much they have exact feature parity because they're
aside from like the graphical, obviously like the graphics options on PC, which pretty good PC port. It's got like a low res mode that you can just boot straight into. It turns everything to low, and it still looks really impressive on low settings.
It's like a competitive game like that. For anything from down to remember like competitive Quake, they used to just turn everything down to nothing.
Yeah, competitive StarCraft,
like
competitive
Warcraft.
They still do that just to optimize performance.
Yeah, it's like you want to get up to 140 frames a second on your crazy monitor. It's like, yeah, you can do it. Your game's gonna look like garbage, but and actually sometimes it's easier to see things if the backgrounds are
with
not
turn
as
off
busy.
fog effects. I don't want anything in the way.
Right. It's like, yeah, that looks cool, but turn it all off because I need to see my opponents and nothing else.
Yeah. Anyway, feature parity across platforms. So you're good to talk about whatever.
Right, sure. So there's feature parity, but like that said, there's some features that aren't there that are pretty surprising. And it's amazing.
Feature absence parity as well.
Feature parity, feature paucity.
Right. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. No, it's odd the things that aren't there. And then it's funny how basically it's a tale of two demographics. Okay, there's competitive fighting game players. Now, when I say competitive, I don't mean like you're actually a pro who gets paid. I mean like someone who approaches it with a competitive mindset. Like I put myself absolutely in that group of people. Like am I a pro? No, I'm not a pro. Do I approach the game in an academic way? Absolutely, I do, and I try to understand it. And
it's
learn
more
it
about like, do you speak the game's language?
Right. Do you speak the game's language? And it's two things. Is your primary way of engaging with a fighting game to sit in training mode for hours and hours and hours to workshop different setups and combos and block strings and figure out hey, this person put me in this really bad situation, I don't know what I could have done there, let me recreate it with a recorded dummy and figure out a way out for 3 hours. And then when I'm done doing that, I'll grind on matchmaking for the entire night and see where I'm at, and then watch some replays.
Brenda just perpetually shaking her head.
And then watch some replays and figure out where I went wrong in that last match.
So is your approach to do it that way or to have fun?
Well, that's fun to me. Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's
for me. That's 100% fun. And
I think we all have that kind of game too.
Yeah, it's like that's. Sure. I'll go sit in Dota and learn
watch
new
replays.
stuff.
Right. I mean, and I did that in Dota too. I mean, I did countless bot matches, perfecting build orders and perfecting. Sure, absolutely. Like so, that's the way in which I engage with games. And there's a certain group of people who play fighting games, not just professionals. There's professionals who do that obviously because they're doing it for money. But there's people below that level who engage with games that way. And for them, Street Fighter V has a terrific feature set. It still doesn't have quite everything that person would want, like multi-person battle lobbies and a couple of other smaller things. But for the most part, the feature set there is really impressive, especially when it works. Now on PC, the server problems have persisted a little bit longer than on the console. The console server problems, which were really bad for the first 24 hours, have started to subside and get a lot better. And now, on several occasions now, I have been able to get on no problem and just grind matches for a couple of hours straight, just getting non-stop matches.
Because that was the big thing for me yesterday. Like I installed it on my PC and I played through a couple story missions, which whole other series of issues with how awful the story mode is, and how limited it is. But I got the hang of things. It felt good, and I was like, all right, cool. I feel like I know how to play Ken as competently as I can for now. I want to play a couple matches online. Queue, wait forever, wait forever, wait forever. Wait forever.
Get kicked.
Uninstall game.
No.
Yeah, no, it's been a big. So like I've had like two different experiences. I've had the Street Fighter V that works perfectly, and then I've had the Street Fighter V which is the Street Fighter V that I had during betas. It's the Street Fighter V that I had during my review process. And then the morning of release, there was the midnight of release, there was a different Street Fighter V where I couldn't log on for 10 minutes, and then when I finally did, I could barely get a match, and so it's. the launch was definitely very rocky, but my bigger problem with the game right now, where it's at, and why I couldn't give it a better score than I did, is because even with the excellent matchmaking and online experience, like once it's totally stabilized out, which it's getting there, thankfully, and we're seeing spots of it more now, but the bigger problem is what you said before: the limited number of modes for single player content. Now, there are some pros who are being very outspoken, who I'm not going to name specifically, who feel like it's ridiculous for anyone to complain about the lack of, say, an arcade mode.
Well, it's because the way they consume it and the way the average customer who's going to pay $60 to play Street Fighter is going to consume it. They want different things and they expect different things. And this is very much a game made for pros. Not even pros, but to your point about somebody approaching it with a competitive mindset.
Yeah.
You can go in and you can get everything you need because it's all there.
Right.
Getting the satisfactory competitive experience is absolutely there, and it's why it's a great game. It's why we gave it a great score. Mm-hmm. But for someone like me, who's a casual Street Fighter player, who really loves the franchise, I expect more from it. I expect more than just that competitive.
Well, it's because the expectations have been set over the course of this entire franchise.
2 decades.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the big problem. It's like you give all this stuff and then it's like, let's just take that away now.
Yeah.
Why?
And when you do that, for me, I install Street Fighter on my PC. It feels like an early access game. It feels like a game that is a promise of an idea. Which, no disrespect to your score, I played so much Rust. Promise of an idea. Literally, they canceled the game and restarted it, and I loved it. I thought it was a great game, and I would have recommended it to people. But it was early access, limited, problematic, all these things. And Street Fighter is that as well. I couldn't connect to multiplayer matches. The story mode is thin, and the cutscenes are really low rent, and the writing in VO is awful.
And just to jump in here, like usually with the multiplayer focused game, we do a review in progress around here.
Right.
In hindsight, we absolutely should have done that.
I feel that we should have. I agree. Yeah.
The reason we didn't is because this is not a game that generally requires complex matchmaking, like a lot of people being connected at once. It's 1v1.
Yeah, and obviously the netcode is important, but your review establishes like the netcode is good.
Right. Yeah.
It just there needs to be a connection
between
players.
And historically, this style of game just has not had major launch problems like this.
Absolutely. And that's kind of where we were all having this discussion as a group, a bunch of us, and eventually it did come down to like, Vince, like what's your beat on it? And I guess I kind of rolled the dice on this, but I looked back and I said, I don't remember a fighting game that's ever come out and been like, hey, the online is just a mess and you can't get on. Now, there's been plenty of fighting games with crappy netcode.
Yeah.
That's happened a lot, but that's not a matter of it being day one. That's like if it had crappy netcode on day -5, it had crappy netcode on day 50 and on day 500. You know what I mean? So, but I've never seen, because, when you think about the way people consume fighting games, it's not a first-person shooter. Like, it's not Call of Duty where it's going to sell 2 million copies in the first week or two, and a majority of those people are all going to play online. This is like, a super successful fighting game is going to sell a few 100,000 copies in the first week, and then a fraction of those people are going to play online because everyone else just kind of wants to play a few matches with their buddies and play, a few arcade matches, and then they're probably done with the game. That's just the stat that I point out all the time. That when someone pointed out to me that I think competitive players, myself included, sometimes lose sight of, is that Street Fighter 4 has something like 9 million copies. Ooh. Okay. And so then the biggest fighting game tournament in the world, EVO, has a few thousand players. And do that math.
Yeah.
So do that math. Millions of people bought the game, and there's a few thousand people who show up.
Like a fraction of a percent is involved in the hardcore
community. Who's involved in that community. So you can't ignore those other those millions of people.
And even if you blow that out and you look at like the viewing numbers on those tournaments, people who appreciate it on those levels, I don't know what those numbers are,
but they're not close to the millions.
Right. Yeah. So if it's less than a million people, even watching it, that's less than 10% of people who even care about the competitive scene.
Yeah, and and to be clear, like, some people have felt like it's ticky-tacky or it's casual to be like there needs to be an arcade mode. The point
but that's fine.
Right, and A, that's fine, but B, what needs to be said about that is that it's not just what the mode is called, it's arcade or it's story, it's survival. The fact of the matter is that right now in Street Fighter V, it is literally impossible to have a full standard rules match.
I can't play
with
a
the
best
computer.
of 3.
You cannot play a best of 3 rounds match without another human being, and that's completely unacceptable.
It's ridiculous.
It's like, if I want to embarrass myself, I want to do it alone.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It just makes no sense to me because like that and that like. I don't buy the idea that it's like, oh, we didn't have the resources to do it in time, because that is literally the simplest mode in any game, any fighting game.
Yeah.
Like it's the first thing. Like you can't
AI
have,
exists. You can play the story on different
There is
difficulties.
AI.
You can play survival on different
Yeah.
difficulties. You
It's
just
like-
need the rule set.
You can't really have anything else before you have that functionality. So the functionality is there.
It's
They
there.
just didn't build it into the UI.
It's also not in the main menu as one of the coming soon things, which is like, is this happening? Is it coming?
And that's the thing, we don't know. Like we know. So this is the thing. Like some people have tweeted at me, Vince, I don't know if you should have docked it for those things because they said it's being patched in March. And I'm like, wait a minute,
Yep.
it's not being patched in March. What's being patched in March is we're getting the store, we're getting Alex, we're getting challenges and trials and daily quests to like get more fight money. They have not. There is nowhere where Capcom has said, yes, we are adding a way for you to pick a computer opponent, pick who you're going to play against, and play 2 out of 3 rounds with them.
And
no one has come out and
and
said
regardless, even if they had said that, like we still can't score a game.
yeah, the
based
review
on
is
what-
live in February. The
Yeah.
game's
Right.
update is in March. Those
Yeah.
things don't align.
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
like
how it works.
Yeah, it's like we can't score based on promises.
Yes.
Yeah, I could not.
If we did, games would all get 10s.
I could only have and I sit here and I say that I find that unacceptable when I still gave the game an 8. So but to be clear, it only could have gotten an 8 by being so thoroughly excellent at servicing another demographic
Yes.
that I think is also very important and that I also happen to be a part of and that I care about. And if it didn't satisfy, and that's the thing about critique, right? Like, you have to weigh everything. And the fact of the matter is, like, you can't just look at one thing that something gets really wrong, even if it's really bad, and just say, well, that's it. That just makes the whole experience worth nothing.
Well, I think you
know?
and I talked about this at length when I reviewed Battlefield 4. I wanted to give it a significantly lower score than we ended up giving it because you and I talked about this for a long, long time, and you eventually convinced me, and we ended up giving it the score we gave it because Battlefield 4, despite its awful campaign, no matter what, like there might be people out there who do play it for the campaign, but you can't dock the game even though it has this amazing component that a lot of people are going to play. Like, there might be 2 different kinds of people, but you have to service the people who are going to enjoy it.
Right. I mean, the issue is we give 1 score for every
Yes.
game, even though like Battlefield multiplayer and Battlefield single player are basically 2 entirely separate games.
Yes.
But it's one package, and we're scoring the package.
And the package, despite having problems, pretty good multiplayer. You should check out.
So like if we were to say and this is true of like any game with like tacked on multiplayer or whatever,
Sure.
it's got a
What's
great
up,
single player
Tomb Raider?
game but terrible multiplayer. It's a great multiplayer game, terrible single player. If you like basically in your head give it 2 scores, 1 high and 1 low, and then average them out. Like you're misleading both the single player audience and the multiplayer audience
Yeah.
because you're telling the person who's interested in multiplayer it's not very good, but you're telling the person who's interested in single player that it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And neither of those is true. So my philosophy as reviews editor here is to say, hey, we're gonna give the actual recommendation that like, hey, I'm recommending this. Or not recommending it. Like I'm saying like this is a great game, and now I'm going to tell you why in the text. And like the text is like for any review, like going purely on the score, like unless you know why a reviewer is recommending something, you don't know that much. You just know thumbs up, thumbs down, effectively, or with degrees of thumbs up, thumbs down. But like unless you know why the reviewer is recommending it or saying it's bad, and like understanding like whether your tastes are going to align with that or your priorities, like you don't really understand it. So please read and watch reviews is my point.
Read the review. Wow.
Yeah. And like I think that's the only effective way to score a game because that actually represents the way we think about it.
Right. Yeah, that sums it up. I think you put it as best as I can, and it's been a tough situation for me because it's tough to speak to both those audiences at the same time and write something that's useful for everybody. But that's my job, and of course it's funny because there are some people who are hardcore in the competitive community who incidentally like I'm friends with, I've played with, who I know, who are like, I can't believe you did this to Street Fighter, right? Who's that? I can't believe you did this to Street Fighter 5. Not and then there's other people who on the other side of the fence who do engage more casually and want that single player content. And I think whether you're casual or not, I think being able to play just a standard match is not for casual or hardcore. That's just the standard. But there have been some people there who've been like, you were too generous. So it's like I got both sides mad at me. So
Always
I feel like
happens.
nailed it.
It means you're doing a job.
Yeah, that's what happens when you express an opinion on the internet.
Yep.
Now, what I'm kind of surprised they didn't do because this game currently is so plainly aimed at competitive players.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't put it out and say like, hey, here's Street Fighter V,
like Tournament Edition,
Tournament Edition or Competitive Edition.
Yeah, totally agree.
And put it out at $40 and then put out the campaign at $20. As like an additional $20.
Right, like that's coming in June or whatever. Release that.
Now, Call of Duty.
Complete thing.
Call of Duty just announced that they are going to be releasing a competitive starter mode.
It's like $15 or $20 for Black Ops 3's multiplayer.
Yeah.
It gives you a discounted price if you decide you want to upgrade to the full game. And this is like a weird temporary thing where it's on Steam until the end of the month, I think.
It's totally an experiment.
Yeah,
but
it's really cool that they're doing
that. That's a great idea, and I really want to see more of that.
It's what we all say should happen with Call of Duty.
Like, I never play the campaigns for Call of Duty.
Right.
I love the multiplayer. Just never think about the campaigns.
It's like you look at subscribing to cable and having to get premium for HBO, which is the only thing you want to get.
Yeah, it's like just give me cable.
Yeah, give me these games a la carte. Like even on PC, the Call of Duty has 2 different executables. Like it's 2 different games. Like, let me buy them separately. Why not? If I'm only interested in one and not the other. There are a bunch of people who only play the campaign and never touch the multiplayer.
That's absolutely true.
Like, why are you forcing those people to? I mean, obviously it's from bundling.
Money.
But it's not super consumer friendly to force people to buy both. And they could have done the same thing with Street Fighter. And I think that would have been a much more transparent way to sell what they're selling.
Yeah, I think the problem that they've run into here is that their messaging has been very clear from the beginning about what their business model for the future of Street Fighter was, which I thought was great. I think they made it clear that this is a service. They made it clear that they're never going to do a Super Street Fighter V, that gameplay content is always going to be free every time. Balancing changes, new modes, things like that are always going to be free, and that the stuff that's not free, which is just new characters
right?
which is just new characters and then like visual stuff, like cosmetic stuff, will be hats. Will be earnable with in-game stuff. So with in-game credit that you can earn. So they were clear about their business model, but they were never very clear about what was and was not going to be available for your $60 at launch, and that's what killed them. I feel like if they messaged that,
regardless of how clearly, I think it's shouted from the rooftops. It wouldn't matter because most people who go to the store and buy Street Fighter V do not know about it. Don't follow Capcom on Twitter. Don't necessarily even read IGN. Like they would, like a bunch of people would go and buy it, and it would not meet their expectations.
Yeah, and that's why I said. That's why I said in my review, like if you're a person who looks to engage, whose way of engaging with fighting games is single player content, this game just doesn't have.
It's gonna be a real bad experience.
It has almost nothing for you.
90 minutes of story content, I think it works out to maybe 2 hours.
Yeah. So like, I couldn't agree. Like even as a dyed in the wool Street Fighter fan, and someone who's having a blast with the game and just cracking out on it constantly every minute I can. I still feel like they either should have been clear about either way they should have been clear about what was going to be in the box and not in the box on day one. And I certainly don't think that if you're a person who cares about single player content, that it's worth $60 for you right now.
Yeah, 6 months from now, I think it'll be a great game. I think it'll be the game that everyone wants. Because of feedback, the amount of the response right now, the negativity it's receiving. I think Capcom will absolutely embrace that, implement it, and make the game that people want. They're going to add all this extra stuff, all these modes, all these characters, all the systems they've promised. And once it's out of early access, it's going to be a great fighting game.